Good morning, good day. Hope you're doing well. I got caught up working on a big juicy piece, but I wanted to come up for air to talk about Microsoft Xbox's new strategy, because it's not just their strategy, it's a reflection of the bigger trends at large.
Today, we're thrilled to unveil the ultimate all-in-one home entertainment system. The one with the power to create experiences that look and feel like nothing else. The one that makes your TV more intelligent. The one system for a new generation. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Xbox One.
In 12 years, count 'em, 1, 2, Microsoft Xbox has gone from trying to push for an always-online, all-in-one multimedia machine, fighting for game exclusivity, and hosting their own movie and TV show apps to now, well, they no longer focus on hardware. They've reportedly canceled their own handheld. They no longer care for game exclusivity. And on July 18, 2025, they announced they no longer offer movies or TV shows for purchase or rent through their own app. Well, what's left then? It might feel as if Microsoft Xbox have given up and they are not long for this world. Soon they'll be in a fresh grave with a shiny green tombstone that says everything is an Xbox. And that tombstone will also be an Xbox. Now, I'm not here to say, actually, Xbox is going to kick up right before the referee's hand slams down on the mat for the 3 count. No, they definitely lost the console wars. And in my opinion, they would have gone completely under if it weren't for their 2 Deus Ex Machina eagles flying down to save them. One of them is being bankrolled by Microsoft, that tends to get you pretty far, and the other is video gaming moved past the console wars. See, 12 years ago, there was this idea floating around in different industries that the best thing you could do for you and your business is to own everything. An easy, quick example here is something like Brahms in Oklahoma. It's an ice cream and dairy store that owns the farm their cows are located on and owns the plant that processes their milk. By actually owning this part of their product chain, it means they have more control over their costs and over the quality of their product. This was as a response to what other businesses were doing, which was to outsource their product at different steps. If you buy milk from someone else, you don't know what they're doing to their cows. You can't really control the cost, and it's your product that suffers for it. There's a saying that goes, do not build your castle in other people's kingdoms. So some businesses figured it'd be best to build their own kingdom. This wasn't just a Microsoft Xbox thing or even a gaming thing. I remember working in warehouses and helping them set up their own garages so they could repair their own fleet of trucks and setting up different processing stations for different products. Before that, they outsourced their mechanics, their trucks, their drivers, and just held on to raw material that others would process. They wanted to improve their quality and cut down on costs, so they put down a fat wad of money to invest in building their own kingdom. And while yes, they did make more money, a lot more money, the thing you have to consider is that it costs a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of know-how to start up a kingdom. And even more time, more money, and even more know-how to maintain the kingdom. You also need a lot of volume to justify it all to begin with, and the more industries your kingdom covers, the more competition you have. Because Xbox tried to go for an all-in-one media strategy, they had to compete with, you guessed it, all the media. Not just PlayStation and Nintendo. Every entertainment hardware service, every music service, every movie and TV show service, and every communication service that ever existed or would exist was and is now their competition. And a key thing that's different about the online world versus the real world is that people can be virtual nomads. They move and gather around the products and services that they like. You can't trap them as well as you can in the real world. They don't have to stay in one kingdom and only use their products because it's the land of their fathers' fathers. Not at all. People nowadays will go wherever they want to go, and they'll use whatever they want to use, and if the kingdom says they can't, then the people leave the kingdom. And then the kingdom is still stuck with all the cost of licensing and maintenance. And I know this is usually when people point out that Nintendo still gets away with exclusives. I say Nintendo will continue to get away with exclusives until someone competes with them on their terms, but that's a talk for another time. Back on track, another big thing that's evolved the business is Tim Sweeney's years-long crusade against Apple and Google.
And there's no reason that any consumer who gets an app shouldn't be able to do business directly with the developer of the consumer. You already bought that phone. Well, why should Apple be adding a 30% junk fee to all commerce you do? And why do they selectively apply it to some things and not others? I've always viewed this as deeply abusive.
The Google lawsuit was about a monopoly. The Apple lawsuit was about their 30% fee on all transactions in their stores and their ban on cloud gaming services. which would essentially ban all user-generated content, which is considered the big moneymaker in gaming right now. What this means is it has become easier and more ludicrous to build a castle in someone else's kingdom while not taking on too many fees and still be able to have some quality and cost control over your product. At least for now, I feel like this shifts all the time. For as long as I've been on the internet, people always told me to go ahead and build my own sites. I'm like, for what? I don't need that much control, and I'm okay paying to not have to deal with software. As for what this means for Xbox, I figure they figure. The costs were too much, and the competition was too fierce for them to keep up the necessary critical mass that a kingdom requires. I don't even think PlayStation will stay, or should stay, committed to being an all-in-one media machine. But I could be swayed on that position. I feel like Microsoft's Xbox made the assessment that in the very near future, consoles are gonna have a harder time competing with non-console hardware like phones, gaming handhelds, PCs, TVs, and who knows what your fridge is gonna be capable of. I think they also realized they weren't capable of dominating any one media market, let alone all of them, and are better off facilitating as many of them as possible. And if the rumors are true, that Steam's gonna get an app on Xbox but not PlayStation, then who knows how much that's gonna tilt the vibe scales in Xbox's favor. As much as I love PC gaming, I am aware of the perception that it's expensive, has a lot of moving parts, and it's not really made for the living room space, so to speak. Whereas a console is a box with like 3 wires that you just turn on and kick your feet up. Handhelds have the reputation of being just as casual as consoles and more portable, but they're not as strong as consoles. Valve already has a handheld with the Steam Deck, and they have the PC market. What they don't have is a console. They tried once with the Steam machine and it failed. If Steam ends up on Xbox, then Valve gets a console, and that puts them in the living room, and Xbox becomes Valve's de facto Steam machine. Valve doesn't even have to make it an exclusive deal, because if Sony also wants Steam on the PlayStations, then Valve still wins and they get 2 consoles. What's left to see is if Sony will want to host Steam on their platform. I think they will. Sony dropped their no crossplay stance once Fortnite made all the money. They're also releasing Helldivers 2 on Xbox. I know this inherently comes off as pro-Xbox, but I think multiple things can be true at the same time. I think Microsoft Xbox lost terribly to Sony. I'm not trying to paint them as a populist underdog, because when they had the semblance of a lead, they were more focused on winning through anti-consumer means like exclusivity and acquisitions rather than on quality. There's a difference between doing good for gamers and gamers benefiting from the consequences of Xbox's actions. Make no mistake, if the old ways were still profitable, they would still do them. I think this is them doing the most they can after that brutal loss. I think the console wars as we know them are over, and both Microsoft Xbox and Sony PlayStation would have had to move into the cloud alongside Steam regardless of who won. And I think Xbox has a head start going into the next phase because Sony feels stubborn on sacrificing their studios for a live service hit. As far as I'm concerned, I like this direction, because I'm a romantic who believes video game companies should be competing with video games. Instead of acquisitions, exclusivity, locked-in ecosystems, none of that. But we'll see where that ends up with AI being thrown into the mix. Seems it's becoming more and more prominent, or the industry is becoming less and less shy. That's the thing about business, no one knows nothing and everyone knows everything. Industry standards can change on the dime, and standards simply mean this is the strategy most people are betting on right now. Who knows what we'll be betting on in 5 years' time? No, like genuinely, if you know what's going to be big in 5 years, do tell. I've got some stock I'd like to invest in.